use Dr. Fabian Martinez with the subject the future of the public accounting in the face of the disruption of the fourth industrial revolution. We already mentioned that the goal of this conference is to raise awareness of the impact of all those changes or transformations in the global environment. So we're going to connect Javier Martinez. Well, Dr. Fabian Martinez, you have the floor. We're all ears. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I'm going to be talking about the public accountant future. My apologies because I had to change the presentation, and this change was necessary because of workshops we had last week, and there were some changes there. So yesterday at night I was updating my presentation, and that is why I didn't present it on time. So in 1992, the College of Accountants and the Mexican Institute of Public Accountants, an institutional book was published, The Managerial Area Towards the 21st Century. Lawrence Weinbach, who was the chairman of Arthur Anderson, and talking about inventing the future. See, the goal of the accounting profession is to be at the service of the current needs in a global market of high technology. The profession should be redefined. We're talking about 1992. Currently, there's been 28 years. However, at that time, they were talking about high technology, and the profession must be redefined, and the technology at that time cannot be compared with the technology of these times. More than to redefine is that the accountant has to fully reinvent. Those are the perspectives. If we want to see the perspectives of the accountant towards the future, we need to see his journey throughout time. Lucas Passion invented accountancy in the 15th century, but there were careers, and remember, in the superior education school was the first accounting school where accounting courses were given, a technical careers of accounting, but it was not until 1907 the career was became formal with Fernando Diaz Barroso, who was the first professional title that was granted in Mexico. And then the public accountancy evolved. Also, General Motors provided the cost accounting. We were about internal control in 1930, and it was becoming better. And the first half of the 20th century, there were many schools that were giving private accountant uh, career. There were many schools at that time, but the professional career of public accounting was moving forward. And it was in Mexico in 1959 in April when the the federal fiscal audit was established. And the public accountant had to give his or her opinion in financial statements, and this give a very good position to the accountant. This third revolution, according to the Global Economic Forum, with their speak about the third revolution, who was the gold revolution of the accountant, and this is how we got to the fourth revolution. Okay, as this was mentioned in the Global Economic Forum, so the fourth revolution was started at the beginning of the 21st century with the technology that had a exponential growth. So the accountant was removed from the fiscal expert opinion. So there's no need to have a fiscal expert opinion, and this affected a lot of firms because in revenue represented 60 or 70% of the total revenue. The e-invoice also affected the accountant. Also, the software development of accounting affected the public accountancy. But something that it was equally important, the limitations of the financial statements for decision-making process in the high management. 1970, the public accountant was the man of the information, and it's understandable. We were living through stable times. Those times there were not so many changes that the ones we have today. So the companies were managed in such a way that the external environment was relatively stable. It was enough to have all the internal variables. But for decision-making process, 80% the financial statements accounted for. But are we in the fourth industrial revolution? Yes, the companies are managed from the outside to the inside, and where we live in highly complex environment with disruptions than ever before, and all the companies conditioned to the way they respond to the environment or the opportunities. Now this forecast is changing. Now to take strategic decisions, they go beyond the financial statement. Remember that the financial statements provide information about the past, and it is a snapshot when the high management people want to have information towards the future. So the financial statements have their own limitations. This affected the career of a public accountant. So now we need to think in this item where the career is going to, what will be the future of the public accountant. We have done exercises. I have been with accounting firms and schools of public accounting, and we did exercise, and it surprised me that when I asked them, look, please give me a forecast. Where do you imagine the public accounting, professionally speaking, in 2028 or 2030? How would you imagine him or her? Normally, they do linear forecasts, like like if the concept of accountancy of the first years of the 21st century is projected linearly to 2018, 2030. This won't be the case anymore. The linear forecasts were acceptable, but not anymore with such an unstable environment. And in the new future will be different from the past. Think of all the things that happened, the smartphone in 2007, the social media, the introduction of artificial intelligence, and what they have become. They became in 10 years in radical transformation, and according to experts, the next 5 years there will be more changes and more transformations and more technology than the ones we have in the last years. So those are very turbulent changes, the discontinuous changes when applying technologies and knowledge. So we cannot do linear projections. What are the things we have to create scenarios? Change. Cambio. Adrián. So we need to make changes forward, más. Fourth, in the past, since the first, second, and third revolution, the changes in general terms compared to the changes that we have in the fourth revolution were incremental changes. There was a discontinuous radical change, but it followed a trend of incremental changes. Remember that technologies at that time, continuous improvement, it is are oriented to the idea of incremental changes, but now we have radical changes, discontinuous, disruptive changes. So see that the way the changes projected has changed radically. So we are immersed in a world of changes. So we cannot have the same mindset that the third or second revolution had. New realities require new mindsets, and the mindsets are the ones that trigger all the responses in the face of the times we're facing. So the role of exponential technologies triggered disruptive changes. There was a true explosion of change, and we are living through that. We are immersed in this explosion. So this is the result of the application of exponential changes with IA, big data, nanotechnology, virtual reality, extended reality, cloud computing, analytics, all those technology that flourish, that are significantly changing. So if they are combined one another, so this explosion of change happens. And to those changes, we need to face with the change itself. And for this, we need to have knowledge of exponential technologies, not like to be specialists in each and every one of those technology, but only to have the profile of what they are and their effect and their application and possible and probable effects. So the ruling concept is the exponentiality change. This exponential concept is the ruling concept that we have to have in mind. Exponential technologies that the trigger of all the transformations are exponential because the progress being made, it's huge, that doubles, or 2, 4, 6, 8, 16, 32, supposing that one technology advances every 2 years. So at the end of 10 years, the increase is more than 30 times. And another characteristic, that is the cost of those technology is being reduced as they advance. They reduce. That's why you have your smartphone that is more powerful than the ones that we have in 1960s that cost like $3 million. You have like more computing capacity than that of used during space moon, and the cost is reduced in the same proportion. And this is due its progress, exponential nature, and the reduction of costs. Let's see that the ruling concept of exponentiality has to do a lot with our way of thinking. And because we are still used to the past of a linear mindset, many companies have failed. One of them are Kodak, or many that they were taken as examples. They were the consequence. They thought linearly when we were living in a world of exponentiality. Kodak in 1976 invented and presented the digital image. It was at the early stages. It was a point oh 0.01 megapixels. But then we had all the technologies that were invented, but Kodak didn't have, they missed that this was an exponential technology derived from the Lamour in the 60s, when the co-founder of Yatel realized that every year the number of transmitters in a microchip were doubled. And so since then, the concept of exponentiality was used. So the image digital followed the same trend of exponential technology that duplicated every period of time. So they follow what they continue of the photography. They were 100 years old. They mastered the analogic photography. They had 80% of market share in photography. So they continue working in the analogic way because they didn't have the perspective of seeing the exponential effect of digital technology. The digital technology started with zero point zero 0.01 megapixel, next year 0.04, 0.08, 0.16, but at some point, the first part was a linear growth, but in the knee of this curve, this is where the growth triggered, rocketed. So by the beginning of 1990, there was a definition of 5.12 megapixels. So it was a definition very well accepted, the ones that the first photographic equipment start with. In the 90s, remember, the Japanese companies emerged with the digital image cameras with 3 or 5,000 megapixels. They have a very good definition. And this ended with Kodak. Kodak defended the analogic, but while the digital image was a reality, and this is how we started the 20th century. So in this century, Kodak had 28,000 employees and went bankruptcy. So in 1996, it had 140,000 employees. Nothing was analogic. But Kodak, because they didn't visualize the exponential growth of the digital image that it invented, well, the Kodak missed the train, so they went bankrupt because they didn't think exponentially. So it was used to think linearly. So we cannot continue having the linear mindset in the fourth industrial revolution in the 21st century when we are immersed in disruptive changes. We need to change our mindset, and our mindset must be exponential. And we can no longer do linear forecasts. We need to create scenarios. And this is the creation of scenarios that, based on the trends and events that we identify, how many phenomena we see that are normal for us, the impact of artificial intelligence, computing in the cloud, the changes, the pandemic, what have you. With these changes, we go to the future, and we need to set several scenarios that are probable and possible, and I state not scenarios of we want to happen. No, scenarios what is probable, possible, based on the current events and trends. So we build on those scenarios of the probable and possible context in which the companies will be living in, and they will have to make business, they will have to grow, to be profitable. And once we have those scenarios, we go back to the present to say, okay, so for this kind of companies that were working under these conditions, now as public accountants, what do we need to do to be consistent and to respond to the needs that the companies will have under these scenarios? So we have the transformation process between of what we are as public accountants and what we need to do in the future to fulfill the needs of those companies. So,
And we need to consider these with the same concept. This cannot be like this. We need to create different scenarios of those organizations to whom we provide services. By knowing the profile of these organizations, then we get back to the present, and then we will know how we can reinvent ourselves, which is the starting point. Look, right now in the present, all these challenges that we're experiencing, the advance of technologies, macro data generation, social media, internet, big or huge amount of data are produced. Google forecasted a huge amount of data. All the information since human race appearance up to 2003, now this is done every 4 days. And as time passes, more data will be produced. And we will be immersed in this huge amount of data. Innovation could be the fundamental piece of information to create value, competitive advantage, and transformation. Competition is increasing among companies and professions. It is open. Traditional borders are broken. Geopolitical changes. To respond to all this competition among countries, probably blocs, countries, changes in customers, are present. All these trends continue this rhythm and they get one into the other. So now we can draw the profile of our future with companies. They will be digital. 3 years ago, IBM chairwoman Gina Rometty said, next decade, all companies will be digital. They should be supported by digital platforms, websites, e-commerce, artificial intelligence. All companies should be digital. Robotics will become usual. In the forum of 2016, it was said that countries like China and Mexico will be affected by robotics because our labor force is based on repetitive tasks, and that's the object in robotics. China has prepared to become leader in robotics, artificial intelligence for 2029, not in Mexico. We don't even know where robotics will lead us. And a robot that could cost 20,000 US dollars will cost 5,000 US dollars in the future. It is estimated that a robot can work 3 complete shifts with no benefits or wage. So this is going to be different. Robots are going to change people. That's a fact. The huge number of data is incredible. All this data will be present thanks to big data analytics to have much more information. Information that sets trends of people, purchase intentions, a big source of information for strategic decisions. As Amazon is doing, they know the profile of their customers, so this would be day-to-day activities. Companies need to be innovative. Competitiveness is created with competitive advantages and different schemes. Innovation is fundamental. There's another concept that I want to mention. It is common to speak about innovation. This is a fashionable word, but let's be accurate. Even leaders are using this word, but we need to define innovation. A different thing is technological innovation, with scientists, PhD degrees, developing technology and products. They are in research, in development, but there's another innovation to create value. All those business leaders have done that. Some of them didn't even have a bachelor degree, but they had the vision to create new opportunities and new concepts. Think about this. In the particular case of Mexico, 95% of companies are SMEs. They do not have resources for technological innovation, but they do have ideas to create value. Let's remember, innovation to create value is supported by competences and skills that can be replicated I want to say that the Superior Trade and Administration School is the first and only school in Mexico that has a diploma course in innovation for innovation protocols to produce innovation in processes. And I think that this is the only school. The rest schools of the Polytechnico, they have technological innovation, but not to create value. So this is the fourth year that we give this diploma course. Next year, we're going to give certification for consultants in innovation. We know that this is the potential of companies. Go ahead, please. Human capital. This should be considered a true capital human. Traditionally, the companies have been considering as a cost expense. Not now. Now it is called human capital. Personnel that generates value. Remember that repetitive activities are going to be replaced by robotics, but innovation, ideas to create new products, this is true human capital, assets to generate wealth and value. Companies should focus on the customer. Now, the weight of intangibles. In the previous revolution, we're talking about machinery, equipment. Not now. We have intangible assets. Apple, all these new technology companies, Amazon, IBM, their value is focused on ideas, on tangible assets. Fixed assets are minimum. Apple doesn't even reach 200,000 in fixed assets, but the rest of its value is in intangible assets. That's the trend. We need to take care of them and develop them. Now let's get back to the present and let's think about the future. Something happened here, but well, to face all these needs of the companies, let's imagine about the profile that we were talking about before. Companies should be digital, take care of innovation, and a public accountant needs to assist them to create this system of indicators to manage intangible assets and create value with all these data, produce information to identify critical events. And if they fail, everything fails. All those critical events, developing human capital, becoming an innovation agent, those are the sources for professionals. Sorry, we're having problems with the audio. It is cutting, too bad. There's noise from another participant. Sorry, we're receiving echo. What I wanted to say is that before the prospects of organizations, as I said, the public accountant needs to take advantage of this to respond, to implement monitoring devices as opportunities. A public accountant has a lot of opportunities in this period. And in the next 5 years, companies will have to transform themselves. And there's where we have opportunities if they reinvent themselves. First, becoming in a reliable business advisor. Top management should consider public accountants as a reliable business advisor. And the mindset should be according to changes. They should strengthen all these data, knowledge, new technologies, so they are specialists. And the public accountant should know about this with this strategic, innovative way of thinking. The public accountant should, by definition, become an agent of change and innovation. They should develop competitions and which are the skills in this previous conference requirements of the public accountant to strengthen this formation in these activities. This is the profile of a public accountant. They need to reinvent themselves, and we change even the title. So, finally, let's see the fourth industrial revolution. 5-7 years before this decade finishes, we're going to see many changes. And artificial intelligence is a reality now. Artificial intelligence will be reaching almost human intelligence. With all these perspectives, we will see that in the next years we are going to have transformations bigger than in the last years. Please, accountants, look at these perspectives. All of you are immersed in those, and we just have two alternatives. To reach this world, there are two ways, as I said. One is stay as an spectator. The other one, becoming the protagonist of change. That's the fact. To be or not to be. That is the question. Thank you very much, Doctor. We enjoyed a lot your presentation. All of us know that technology is difficult. Let's not get concerned about this. We have a great team. So we are a family. It depends on the attitude of each one of us. Alma, I give you the floor. Please let us know what's next. the diploma. That's correct. Alma is going to let us know who's going to hand out this participation diploma. To Fabian Martinez Villegas. I can also mention him. Please, Luis Manuel de la Mora. Please. Thank you. Can you hear me well? Go ahead. We can hear you well. Perfect. I am really happy to share with you in this anniversary meeting of UC&CS America. It is my honor to provide PhD degree Fabian Martinez Villegas, professor in many institutions. He's really a master in innovation, in creativity. I'm going to read your diploma of participation. UC&CS America gives this participation diploma to Fabian Martinez Villegas for the participation with the speech, The Future of the Public Accountant Before Transformations. This was given on October 14th, 2020. It is signed by our chairman, Mauricio Mubarak. Dr. Fabian, thank you for your effort, your contribution with all this innovation. Thank you very much.